So far in our study through the Sermon on the Mount, we have discovered at least 21 actions or attitudes we should have as we live our faith in this world. Now, we need to remember that we are saved by grace and not by works. Jesus here has given us examples of how to live in such a way that's pleasing to God and makes a difference in our world. All these good works and lifestyles are not something we have to do, but something we get to do as Christians. We get to do them to honor and glorify God. We make the mistake sometimes of thinking that the only way that we glorify and honor God is by standing behind a pulpit and preaching. That's not true. We glorify and honor God with everything we do in our lives. And that's what Jesus is talking about here in this sermon. However, too often we take the things that we are supposed to do and we become insufferable with them, don't we? When my son JD was in driver's ed, he often pointed out to me when I did not use my turn signal or come to a complete stop. Now, I don't think he really meant it to be mean, but when he learned the rules of the road, he shared that insight with me as if I had never heard them before, and he was the only one who knew what was best. The things he told me were not wrong. He was right in those things, but they came across as judgmental, as if he knew and I did not. In the same way, sometimes as Christians, we know what is right and wrong and think we should point out the error of everybody else's way. Jesus understood that tendency. And so he suddenly shifts gears as Matthew chapter 7 begins. If you have your Bibles, look with me at Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 and 2. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Now, these are some of the most misunderstood words in the entire Sermon on the Mount. Sinclair Ferguson wrote, frequently we hear these words cited when, for example, we make some comment on a situation and condemn evil. Judge not, someone will tell us, seeming to imply, don't ever say something is wrong. It isn't up to you to judge. And you know, that's how the world would rather we be. Don't force your morality upon me, is the call of our society. Our world wants to believe that no one has the right to tell us we are doing anything wrong. Some 50 years ago, theologian Martin Lloyd-Jones wrote, we are living in an age when definitions are at a discount. It's an age which is characterized by a love of ease and compromise. It is an age of appeasement. It dislikes a man who knows what he believes. It dismisses him as a difficult person who is impossible to get on with. The purpose of the Sermon on the Mount has not been to make us insufferable zealots, telling everyone what they are doing and that it's wrong. The purpose is to teach us how we live. Matthew chapters 5 and 6 are full of examples contrasting a righteous from a self-righteous person. Jesus assumes that we can tell the difference. In other words, there is a certain amount of judging that always takes place in our lives. You see, we have to be able to distinguish between what is right and what is wrong. We must understand what a hypocrite is. And we are forced to decide if we will follow Jesus or the world. Those are all judgments that we make. Those are all judgment calls. You see, our lives are filled with judgment calls. Judgment calls that we have to make every day. We must decide what clothes we will wear, We judge a TV show to be good or bad. We determine if that food tastes right or if we like that person. The truth is, we make judgment calls all the time, every day. So what Jesus is warning us about in our text is how we judge others. It is not a fair statement and misses the point when someone says, "Don't judge me." True, God is the only one who can judge us, and we are all answerable to Him. But that doesn't remove the responsibility of making judgment calls in our lives. However, any condemnation of others or of other things must be tempered by remembering who we are and who we are talking to. So to make this point, Jesus offers two very vivid and actually very funny illustrations. As we continue our journey through the Sermon on the Mount, let's look at these two illustrations and see what they can teach us about judging. First, in judging others, remember who we are. Remember who we are. Look at verses 3 through 5 of Matthew chapter 7. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, "Let me take the speck out of your eye," when all the time there's a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Jesus illustrates our inability to judge correctly with the story from his own earthly background. Remember, his earthly father Joseph was a carpenter, and Jesus had grown up around wood chips. If the wind kicked up around Joseph's place of business, invariably someone would get a piece of sawdust in his or her eye. If you've ever had that happen, you know that sometimes you can just blink out the sawdust, or you can rub it out of your eye and it'll go away, but sometimes that foreign particle gets stuck in there real good, and you need someone to help get it out. The word picture Jesus paints here is actually a good example of his humor. You can almost see a twinkle in his eye and a smile on his face as he talks about the hypocrite with a 2x4 stuck in his eye. Did the audience laugh? Did they get the joke? Well, Matthew doesn't say. But I like to imagine that when the people went home, they told that silly story over again around the dinner table. But as funny as that story was, Jesus is making a very serious statement with it. Alexander McLaren described it this way: if you have great faults of your own, undetected and unconquered, you are incapable either of judging or of helping our brethren. Such efforts will be hypocritical, for they pretend to come from genuine zeal for righteousness and care for another's good, whereas their real root is simply censorious exaggeration of a neighbor's fault. They imply that the person affected with such a tender care for another's eye has his own in good condition. Dr. McLaren used the word censorious to describe the hypocrite, but that's not a word most of us use every day anymore. It simply means fault-finding or critical. And it's a stereotype of a person looking down their nose at others. In our modern world, Christians are often portrayed as egotistical, critical bigots looking for faults and quick to condemn others. Now, those of us on the inside know that usually that's not true, but that's how we often come across. And Jesus warned us about being that way. The clearest teaching in the Bible about not looking for and condemning faults in others is found in John chapter 8, verses 1 through 11. That's where you find the story of the woman who was caught in adultery. If you read the story, you will see that Jesus never said she was innocent, because obviously she was not. After they caught her in the very act, and Jesus never said that it was wrong to punish her, because the law was very clear on the punishment of such a woman. The point Jesus was trying to make was that only those who are sinless have the right to inflict judgmental punishment on her. Jesus did not condemn or hold her sin against her, but he did let her know that what she did was wrong by saying, "Go and sin no more." That's a very subtle difference, isn't it? We are to recognize sin, and we're to be very clear that sin is wrong and leads to death, but we have no right to condemn or judge others because of the sin in their lives, because we have plenty in our own. People often ask me, "Will so-and-so go to heaven?" And I can't answer that. And that's not my job. It's not up to me to make that call. My job and my call is to let others know about the salvation God offers. Whenever we see sin in this world, we should not condemn the world to hell, but reflect upon our own sinfulness. As Paul wrote in 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 15, Christ Jesus came into the world to save sinners. That's a lying to the worst. Besides, we do not know what's really inside a person's heart. Dodie had been a school teacher for 15 years when she decided to travel across America and see the sights that she'd been teaching her students about. Traveling alone in a truck with a camper in tow, she began her journey. Well, one afternoon, while rounding a curve on Interstate 5 near Sacramento, California, in rush hour traffic, a water pump went out. She was tired, exasperated, scared, and alone. And in spite of the traffic jam she caused, no one seemed interested in helping her. Leaning up against a trailer, she prayed, "Please, God, send me an angel, preferably one with mechanical experience." Within just a couple of minutes, a huge Harley drove up, driven by an enormous man, spouting greasy, long black hair, beard, and tattooed arms. His weather-beaten leather jacket was embroidered on the back with the words, "Hell's Angels." However, this was not the kind of angel she had in mind when she prayed. With an incredible air of confidence, the man jumped off his bike, without even glancing at Dodie, examined the engine under the open hood. Sizing up the situation, the man flagged down a larger truck, attached a tow chain to the frame of her truck, pulled it off to the side of the road, and calmly began to work on the pump. The intimidated schoolteacher was too scared to talk, but after he finished, she got up the courage to say thank you. Looking her in the eyes, the man mumbled, "Don't judge a book by its cover. You may not know who you are talking to." And with that, the man revved up his Harley and was gone as fast as he had appeared. So the question becomes, how do we preach against sin and take a stand against what's wrong and not be hypocritical? Very carefully and with a very humble spirit. Because you see, remember the cartoon character Pogo? Pogo once claimed, "We have met the enemy, and he is us." We could just as easily say, "We have met the sin in others, and it is our sin." The way we preach then is not about how wrong sin is, although that should come across very clearly. No, what we should be preaching about is how right Jesus is. Jesus is warning us to go beyond surface judgment of others and straighten out the mess in our own lives first. Remember who we are. Then Jesus tells us in judging others, remember who we are talking to. Remember who we're talking to. Verse 6. Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and then turn and tear you to pieces. In spite of the dangers of judging, we also engage in activity, don't we? As I've already suggested, we must use judgment every day just to survive. For instance, I will judge that the car in front of me is stopping, so I will slow down accordingly. The problem comes when we try to impose our morality on others when they do not have a clue what righteousness is all about. And that's the danger. You see, dogs back in Jesus' day were generally not kept as pets. They were wild animals that lived in packs at the edge of town. And they scavenged through the filth and waste of the village. Pigs were also considered unclean by the Jewish community. And to be down and out in those days was referred to as living with the pigs. Whenever I read verse 6, I think about the picture of dogs playing poker. You've all seen that picture, right? It's a silly picture because, dogs can't do that, and they certainly cannot discuss and ponder the written Word of God, as Jesus jokes in our text. Nor can pigs parade around in necklaces and jewels. The only use a dog has for a book is as a play toy. And if a pig cannot eat a pearl necklace, he would not be interested in it. In fact, a dog or a pig might even become angry at us because we're trying to force something on them that they cannot chew or eat. Our responsibility as Christians is clear. We are to spread the gospel to everyone in the world. Jesus is telling us here, when you do that, don't be foolish. Know who you are talking to. We waste our time throwing what is sacred to dogs. There are too many people who really want to know about Jesus for us to spend our time trying to get pigs to wear jewelry. And we have to use judgment to know the difference. There was an employee of a florist shop who was not very careful with the flowers he sent out. One day a businessman ordered flowers sent to a friend who had just moved into a new office. So imagine how upset he was when the flowers arrived and the ribbon across the bouquet said, "Rest in peace." So the businessman went to the owner of the flower shop to complain. And when he told him what happened, the owner turned pale. "If you think that's bad," he said, you receive those flowers, then there's a cemetery in town with a floral display that reads, "Good luck in your new location." Now, there are many Christian organizations and individuals today that spend most of their time condemning the lifestyle and action of various non-Christians. I always thought that was silly, because what else would you expect a non-Christian to do than non-Christian things? Now, if the offending organization has their source of income cut off, or if their business is threatened by boycotts or bad publicity, they might change what they're doing. But instead of repenting, they'll become more angry at us. See, the abortion clinic and adult bookstore might be removed from our community, but the sin that allowed it to grow and exist in the first place will still be here. And because of our attacks, chances are those who are searching for alternative answers will not try us. A long time ago, we had a dog named Shady. Now, when Shady was a puppy, I tried to housebreak her by using rolled-up newspaper. It made her stop. It worked. But you never did really understand that what she did was wrong. She was just scared of the newspaper. You see, if she was lying next to me while I was reading the newspaper, and after I finished reading the paper, I would toss it on the floor, she would run out of the room with her tail between her legs. Because that's all she knew. In the same way, boycotts and protests might stop bad behavior, but they do not make people see the sin in their lives. We might win the battle, the offensive thing may stop, but we will lose the war. The offender will go right on sinning and never see Jesus. Wouldn't it be better to teach those people the good news about Jesus? Of course, that might mean, if we did that, filling these pews with the wrong kind of people. That might mean people with different ideas and thoughts might enter this building. And it might mean that we will be known as a sanctuary for sinners instead of a church for saints. Casting pearls before swine means doing what is mindlessly inappropriate. On occasion, we get stuck in the rut of a tradition that's not in itself bad. By our actions, we are really conveying an unspoken message that the gospel belongs to a past generation or is permanently enshrined in some ancient tradition. It's wrong to assume that just because we are a church, just because our doors are open, that people will come. They don't need pearls thrown at them, but they do need to know how Jesus can make a difference in their lives. Tony Campolo has said that the Christian life is a party. In other words, there is something here that is attractive, something that people want to be part of. That has a lot to do with our being, as we've already talked about, salt and light. It has something to do with what and how we call the truth of life. Several years ago, I heard about a city that banned the Easter Bunny from being displayed at the courthouse at Easter because someone had complained that it was a religious symbol. Now, that's kind of extreme and silly because the Easter Bunny, even though you might be able to find a story connecting it with the Easter story, the Easter Bunny is not representative of Jesus or what he did on that first Easter. I guess it's like what happened on that first Palm Sunday. The crowds cheered Jesus on when they thought he was going to free them from the tyranny of Rome. But when he was sent before Pilate less than a week later, the same people were shouting, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" They didn't get it. And neither do non-Christian people today. Of course, Easter is the most religious of all holidays. But the world does not understand. It doesn't really matter if we can display an Easter bunny or a cross or the nativity scene at Christmas in public places, because we can display it here. Our job is not to quibble over symbols, but to show light in a very dark world. Our job is not to judge. Our job is not to decide if someone deserves something. Our job is to lift up the fallen, to restore the broken, and to heal the hurting.